Pointspreads.ca, which is affiliated with Spreads.ca, Canada's newest, largest, and funnest licensed online sportsbook and casino. If you're watching or listening to us on Facebook, you can type in a question. About halfway through the show today, we're going to get to your questions, and we're going to talk about Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about this remarkable season we've been through and we're in the midst of. We're going to talk about the playoff race. We're going to talk about the championship series of both the American League and the National League, and then we're going to talk World Series predictions and even maybe some gambling tips from our experts here. So let's talk some baseball now. My guests today, they're all lifelong baseball fans. And as I introduce them, I'm going to ask each one of you to remember your best World Series memory. And you're from different parts of the country. You have different backgrounds, but you all share a love of baseball. So let's start with Scott Byron. He's originally from Queens, New York, now residing in the Garden State of New Jersey. And he's a long-suffering New York Mets fan. I have to bring that up. Welcome, Scott. What's your favorite memory? And thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nolan. I was 9 years old when the Mets won the World Series in 1969 of the Miracle Mets. And yeah, that's a very impressionable age. And it was completely life-changing. You know, it sealed my fate as a Mets fan for life. I didn't get to go to any of the World Series games, but they would wheel televisions into my classrooms in the afternoons so we could watch the black and white broadcasts of the baseball games. And it was phenomenal. It was miraculous. It was wonderful. I also got to go to all 4 of the home games in 1986 when they won the World Series the second time. So I've had a lot of great experiences with the Mets, despite a lot of suffering.
Where were you sitting on the famous or infamous Bill Buckner play? Where were your seats, Scott?
Third base line, front row of the mezzanine, about behind third base.
In other words, great seats.
Yeah, I mean, we had a shared season ticket that year, and that was where we ended up.
I think all of us could listen to these stories all day. Let's go to the next one. Earl Burton from Tampa, Florida. But you've been all over the map, but you've been a lifelong baseball fan. Earl, what's your favorite memory?
Oh, see, the thing is, I have been a Yankees fan since I was this tall, okay? Now, this is going to sound strange, but some of my greatest World Series memories don't have anything to do with the Yankees. In fact, they have to do with the Red Sox. Who doesn't get a tingle up their spine with the Carlton Fisk home run in the '75 World Series, Game 6? You know, and him, you know, trying to body language the ball fair. I mean, that was just drama personified. Which made it stand out to me. And then if I was going to go with one, I would go with the one that Scott pointed out, the '86 Bill Buckner play. I had watched Bill Buckner play for many years with the Cubs when I was living in the Midwest. And so seeing him make a World Series with a team was great to see. But then to see what happened to the man, I mean, everybody talks about, Bartman there in Chicago when they, blew it in the 2000s the first time. But Buckner was really vilified he was never a great fielder, and he just couldn't get down to the ball anymore. And the way that, it just felt for the man. Once again, the drama of it all. So, yeah, even though I'm a huge Yankees fan, the top moments for me, don't involve the Yankees. They actually involve the Red Sox.
Great stuff. Larry Greenfield, a UC Berkeley graduate, a Georgetown University law graduate, and you have the you have the prestigious honor of being the most prolific guest on the show. I think this is your fourth or fifth time on our show, Larry Greenfield from Los Angeles, but also living now in Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us. We're finally talking baseball. What do you think?
Thanks, Nolan. Yeah, I think being on your shows is now #1 on my resume and my CV. So I think most people know I'm an LA guy. And so I narrowed down to 3. Bob Welch challenging Reggie Jackson in the 70s. Some epic battles. Of course, Mr. October, Reggie Jackson won some of them. That was amazing. And I was with friends and family. In fact, it was a holiday season. We were all in front of the TV. Vince Scully calling Kirk Gibson in '88. In a year of the improbable, the impossible has happened. The one-legged Gibson hitting the homer off Dennis Eckersley. A really unusual moment because he was so wounded, not even likely to play that game, of course. But #1 World Series story has got to be the '65 World Series Dodgers Twins. And game 1, Sandy Koufax says to Don Drysdale, "Can you switch spots with me? I can't pitch. It's Yom Kippur. It's my Jewish holy day. It's the day of repentance. God will strike me down." And Drysdale said, "Of course, I'll be happy to switch spots with you." And Dandy Don Drysdale, also a Hall of Famer, a righty, took the place of Koufax, the lefty, and promptly got bombed and gave up 7 earned runs in 2 1/3 innings. So skipper Walter Alston approaches the mound and Drysdale gives him the ball with a sly smile on his face. And he says, "Skip, I bet you wish I was Jewish today too." A coda on that story, Koufax then lost game 2, but came back to win complete game victories in game 5 and game 7 on 2 days rest. Maybe that was the moment when he hurt his arm for good. And he won the MVP, and the Dodgers won the '65 World Series in 7 games. Sweet Lou Johnson hit a couple homers, including in that 7th game. He just passed away last week, as did Ron Peranowski, and before them, Don Newcomb. So there's a lot of Dodger lore, and there's a lot of warm memories of all the Dodger history.
Oh man, I'm filing all this away for a future show. We should just do like baseball memories. I don't think I realized how much I want this segment to continue, but unfortunately, gentlemen, we have actual current series going on here, actually 2 series, and the World Series coming up, well, probably this next week. So let's talk 2020 baseball. Gentlemen, it's not over yet. We are in the midst of one of the strangest seasons we've ever seen or ever witnessed. And now I'd like to ask you to look back, say the season started, of course, was delayed because of the COVID crisis and pandemic. What was your biggest takeaway and your biggest surprise of the 2020 season, looking back to the beginning and the regular season and maybe even the early rounds of the playoffs? Biggest takeaway and biggest surprise. Who wants to take that first?
Look, I'm just impressed and amazed that they pulled it off. I mean, I think at the very beginning, when they started this shortened season, people were taking bets on whether they would last more than a couple of weeks before they canceled the whole thing. And, you know, they pulled it off, and it's pretty damned exciting.
You know, the thing is, we can sit back here and question whether they should have done it or not, because in the game of baseball, 60 games it is nothing. So that kind of maybe taints whatever's going to happen this year. I mean, for example, everybody was, you know, like, the Miami Marlins are going to be bottom feeders. They made the playoffs. They played 500 baseball, 31-29, I think it was. And they made the playoffs, completely blowing expectations out of the water. But that's the way baseball is. I mean, there's one constant that, and I forget where I heard this a long time ago, you're going to win 60 games, you're going to lose 60 games. It's what you do with those other 40 odd games that really makes what your season is going to be. And that's something that, you know, I kind of take into consideration when I'm looking at what happened this year. Now, having said that, the story of the Marlins was amazing that they just said, okay, well, we'll just show you how well we're going to do. And they came out and they did admirably for a team with a minuscule payroll, much like the Tampa Bay Rays. They came out, they blew away everybody, they made the playoffs, and, you know, couple breaks here or there, they could have been sitting to where, you know, Atlanta and LA are. Couple of breaks. They could have been the Tampa Bay Rays, you know, of the National League. I love it when you see these teams that nobody expects anything out of, like a couple of years back here when the Blues won the Stanley Cup. Nobody expected them to do that. But for them to come out and do that, I mean, that's why, you know, we enjoy sports, not just baseball or hockey or basketball. We enjoy, you know, seeing somebody fight back against the odds and win, you know, and surprise us. I mean, it's, you know, sports is replete with these stories, and that's something that, you know, you always look for to kind of say, yeah, I remember when that happened. That was something.
Excellent.
Very nice, Earl. So mine will be a little briefer. Nolan, I had a piece on the website before the season, and it did come pretty true to form. We did fairly well at prediction. I had two bets, by the way, futures bets for the season, and I did win them both. One was that a batter would hit more than, thank you. One was that a batter would hit more than 20 home runs.
Yeah.
And Luke Voit of the Yankees did. And the other was that a team would win 40 plus games, and the Dodgers won 43. So I won my two futures bets. The only surprises for me were, I'm surprised the A's had as good a record as they did. I don't think they have a very good lineup. The Angels were a mess, which is fine with me. I don't like I don't like their name, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, which means the Angels of Anaheim. And Anaheim ain't in Los Angeles, so I'm not happy with them. And then the Padres run, I think, is pleasant and surprising. Now, the Dodgers beat them 6-4 in the 10 games in the regular season, and then swept them 3-0 in the playoffs. So that's 9-4, but it was closer than that. And the Padres are finally nipping at the heels. After 8 Western Division championships, the Dodgers will finally have a competitor next year.
Excellent. All right, so we've got.
I was rooting for the Padres. They were so nothing against the Dodgers, who were an incredible team, but they were so scrappy and fun to watch.
I know that. And so Nolan, it became weird that the Dodgers played their playoff games in Texas in that big stadium. Maybe we'll get to that. And the Astros, the Asterisk, played in San Diego. So the Dodgers missed out on several rounds of home playoff games, but we'll get to that.
We will get to that. And well done on the predictions, Mr. Greenfield. You posted that back in, I think, June at Pointspreads.ca. You put some great predictions up, and they've been pretty darn good. My own prediction, the only season future that I bet that I made was, I'm embarrassed to admit this, I had the Miami Marlins 600 to win 500, under 24.5. I looked at that lineup, and I had done a lot of research, especially on the NL East, because that was 3 really good teams coming in. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia, Atlanta, and the Mets. Any of those teams could have won 85, 90 games. And then you had the Marlins that were supposed to win in a regular season 62, 63, 64, and they were going to lose 100 games. And boom, they go, I think, went 5-1 out of the gate. And I said, oh, I'm dead. And of course, I lost my money.
Yeah, they went 31-29. How do you think they did do that? Was it pitching or hitting?
I think it's small sample size. Obviously they played above their heads, but small sample size, I think is and there's something to be said for youth. And by the way, the Miami Marlins were also hit with COVID early.
Yes.
And that's when I thought, I got a lock here. Boy, was I wrong. Not the first time, not the last either. All right. So anyway, enough beating up on myself. Let's talk some National League Series first. Now, as we do this, if you're watching this later, we're doing this right prior to Game 4, which is later today, which is a Thursday, talking about the championship series between the LA Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves. And of course, now that's 2-1 as I speak right now. The Braves are up 2-1 in the series. Game 4 going later today. Of course, last night, wow, what a 15-3 victory by the Dodgers. But that first inning, man, first inning, 11 runs. I think that was an all-time record for the, I think, postseason and even regular season first inning, the most runs ever. I looked at the ERA of Ryan Wright afterward. His ERA, he allowed 7 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning. His ERA is 94.50. Have you ever seen that? By the way, Scott Byron, we could have given you the baseball, taken the mound for the Braves. I think you would have done better than that, Scott Byron.
I would have taken the ball.
Anyway, let's talk about that series, and particularly what I want to know is, was that last night's game, was that turning the curve, and are we now in for a whole new series within the Dodgers-Braves series? Scott, I think I was asking you. Go ahead.
It certainly feels that way. I mean, the Dodgers have always been an explosive offensive team. I mean, can the Braves pitching hold them? And we're coming back around to the Fried at the beginning and of the rotation, and if he can hold them, then Atlanta can pull this pull this out pretty quickly. But they're an incredibly explosive offensive team, and they probably deserve to be the favorites before the series.
Yeah, I think Scott's on to something there. The question is whose pitching is going to show up. You've got the Dodgers have got one of the preeminent staffs in the league. The Braves have been sneaky good this year with their pitching, and then both sides got the bashers that they need to actually get some runs scored. Whose pitching is going to step up? I think tonight. Or this afternoon, as the case may be, with Kershaw is going to be the important deal. If he pitches, and he's supposed to, from what I've read, if he comes out and he shuts down the Braves, then yeah, we're back to a 3-game series for the pennant. But if he comes out and gets bombed, I think the Braves go right back into that driver's seat again, and with Freeman, Acuna, Ozuna, they're going to be very strong and very tough to beat, even with the strength of the Dodger rotation.
So both teams are not at full strength. Buehler has a blister. He was our Game 1 starter. He's only been going 5 innings. Kershaw has back spasms. He's going to pitch tonight. We'll see how he does. Probably fairly well. The Braves are a little weaker against left-handed pitching. The Braves' dominant first 2 starters won games in 1 and 2, and yet the Dodgers were 2-1 favorites in Game 3, Nolan, even with our 5th starter going, Urias, and the Dodgers won 15-3. So now I think the Dodgers win Game 4. They'll certainly be prohibitive favorites with the lefty on the mound, even though Kershaw has a mixed postseason record. So then it would be 2-2. And the Dodgers are set up fairly well with a deeper bullpen. And the Braves have their left fielder out, Duvall. And by the way, neither team has a particularly deep bench because they're only carrying 13 roster and 15 pitchers. And now the Dodgers have scuffed up the Braves bullpen a bit. So I think the Dodgers are even money now to win the series, even though they're down 2-1. I think probably the Dodgers will win the series. They're just deeper. I think they'll win tonight. Anything could happen. The problem for the Dodgers is they have to face again the Braves 1 and 2 starters, probably in games 6 and 7, I would assume, maybe 5 and 6. So it's competitive.
Let me follow up on something. Go ahead, Scott.
You expect Kershaw to be ready for Game 7 if it comes to that?
No, I don't. If he pitches tonight, Game 4. I don't think he comes back in game 7. I think the Dodgers probably throw a bullpen game in there, maybe game 5. And then game 6 and 7 are Buehler and May, or Buehler and Gonsolin, or some combination of Buehler, May, and then Gonsolin staff. I don't think Kershaw pitches game 4 and game 7. Remember, there are no days off, so that would only be 2 or 3 days rest. Yeah.
They could use him out of the bullpen, though, for an inning or two.
Oh, let's not do that. We don't like that.
Bad
That hasn't worked out too well. No.
Well, let me take that because that's actually was going to be my next question about Kershaw and his historic meltdowns in the postseason, and how much of a monkey on the back, so to speak, is that? Because pitching is very much, it's like golf. It's very much a mental game. It's not just physical, of course. And so I wonder about that. Of course, yesterday, meaning the Tuesday game, or I think it was game 3, the back spasms started again that's why he was pulled and delayed to have to start, I guess, today. Again, the question is, he's not at 100%. They're probably not going to throw him more than 5 innings, 6 tops, and that's if he pitches well. So even going forward, assuming the Dodgers were to advance into the World Series, how much of a factor can Kershaw be anyway under these circumstances? Larry, I'll let you take it first.
Yeah, I mean, he's had back problems now for 4 or 5 years, and sometimes they take 2 weeks, sometimes they take much longer to heal up, and then he comes back strong. So he's facing a team that he can probably beat on most nights, but he hasn't done well in the postseason. Something like 10-10 overall, 10-11, 11-10. He probably won't go more than 5 innings. No Dodger starters are going more than 5 innings. Urias last night threw 101 pitches in 5 innings. Gonsolin only went 5 innings. May with his blister only went 5, I think maybe 6 innings. So it's going to be a team concept. But if he gets through 4 or 5 innings tonight, fine, then he should be okay in the World Series, but it could flare up at any time. I'm a little irritated that, they had a week off between Kershaw's starts, and he still didn't make it to the post for game 2. Buehler was game 1. Like, what did you do all week? Why weren't you getting massaged and feeling good? You're only paid $90 million. Go to work.
Sounds like you, Larry.
Well, to back up Larry on that a bit, I mean, it's unbelievable that somebody who has been so dominant as a regular season pitcher has so many issues in the postseason. And I understand, that, there's a little bit more pressure involved in things, of course, but I mean, it is that monkey on the back. Now, Larry also brings up another excellent point in the factor of and this is, especially with the number of pitchers that these teams are carrying, is why they don't just throw out a different arm each inning. Just, hey, here, try and hit him. Go, yeah, bring him in there. Let him try it. I mean, you've got the arsenal, and that would throw off a batter terribly. Say, all right, I'm going to face this. No, I'm not going to face him. I'm not going to face him. Especially when you've got 15 arms in the dugout. Well, burn them up. That they're only going to throw for 1 inning, maybe 20 pitches. Especially if they're on their game. So it's not like that they're going to kill them. So yeah, make your $90 million.
So Earl, the only kind of gentle counter to that would be the other night Gonzalez, I think, got out of the inning in 6 pitches, so he was warm and effective. Maybe you'd agree. I would have let him pitch the next inning, but you run the risk if you throw 5, 6, 7, 8 pitchers into a ball game that somebody shows up without their stuff. That's the risk I would take. So if somebody is really humming along, I'm not sure why managers need to show off and overmanage. This is my complaint against Dodger manager Dave. I call him Julia Roberts. Stop being such a drama queen, okay? We know you know all about lefty-righty. Lefty-righty, lefty-righty, we got it. But if somebody is humming through the lineup at 98 miles an hour, let them throw an extra batter or 2 or inning.
I don't think the manager's that hot, Larry.
You know,
No,
the
not even
comments
close.
the comments about Kershaw in the postseason are accurate, of course, but let's not forget that he's been pretty much lights out this year. You know,
He has, and his fastball is back up to 93, 92. They were
Yeah,
worried
but-
at 89.
But
90.
his pitch is that hook. I mean, that curveball, it just comes in there out of right field. And I mean, that is just amazing to watch that pitch roll.
Uncle Charlie.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't want this to sound like the Los Angeles Dodgers broadcast network, but I do have to ask a follow-up question about the Dodgers. Larry, you're going to start this one off. You're going to field this ball. It's a softball to you, but obviously the Dodgers have been the dominant team in baseball in terms of at least one loss record. Expectations are very, very high for the Dodgers, rightly so, with that pitching staff and their hitting as well, and obviously their tradition and their payroll. Everything points to the Dodgers should win it this year. The question is, Larry, how big of a disappointment, and you're an LA guy, how big a disappointment or a shocker will it be to the Dodger fans, organization, and players if they somehow don't make the World Series or lose the World Series?
I only have a 2-bedroom house, thank God. Otherwise, things could get a little bloody. Look, they haven't won the title since '88. They have a big payroll and a lot of talent. They're focused and determined. The Dodger hitters, to their credit, are not swinging at a lot of bad pitches. They're working the count. They're getting into the other team's bullpen. They're a cohesive group. There's a lot of goodwill on the team. And I mean, they're not extremely deep. Their bench isn't the best of all time, but they're competent at every position. And they do have a good staff. We're a little worried that Buehler is not 100%, our ace now, ahead of Kershaw. So yeah, it'll be throat slitting time if they win 8 straight division titles and can't take the World Championship home. It'll be crying in LA, you bet.
Hey, Earl, when you answer this question, spin it also, because I know you follow the Braves a little closer than a lot of people do. Are the Braves, answer that question I asked earlier, but also are the Braves just totally free rolling it here?
Definitely. They've had no expectations. They have run under the radar for all of the season. They have basically, just kind of snuck up on people, because in the National League, everybody was looking at the Central, the club, who was going to come out of there, the Cubs or the Cardinals, or, the Dodgers and San Diego. When San Diego came out of the woodwork, that really pushed Atlanta further back. And the battle there between the Dodgers and San Diego, I mean, Atlanta is, like I said, sneaky good. They have snuck up on people. They have put together a good young team. Freeman, Acuna, Ozuna, they're going to all be linchpins. In fact, they could probably get rid of one of them to somebody or lose it in free agency and still have a really good team. I look at this. I'm not going to go, find, a bridge to jump off of like Larry might if the Dodgers lose, because I look at it the same way that, I looked at the Yankees getting beat by Tampa Bay. The thing is, Tampa Bay was the better team. They beat the Yankees. When you get beaten by a better team, you say, hey, hats off to you. And let them move on. You can't really begrudge when you get beaten. Now there's instances where you might be able to complain, but I'm going to talk Larry off the ledge there. That if the Dodgers don't win, they got beat by a better team. I mean, it's been a decade, since the Yankees won a series. But sometimes you can only, just because you spend a lot of money doesn't guarantee you're going to have the better team.
So just to soften the blow, and Nolan knows how I live my life here, there was an opportunity just to hedge the pain a little bit before the season started. So somebody I might know took the Braves in 6 at 6.5 to 1, and the Braves in 7 at 5.5 to 1, which with the Braves now up 2 to 1, look like decent shots. I'll still be happy if the Dodgers wind up winning the series, but I'll soften my sadness just a little bit.
Follow your heart and bet your head. Yes.
Money has no allegiance. Scott Byron.
I'll only say that the Braves didn't. How good the Braves are was pretty obvious to Mets fans. We know, and they're probably the main reason the Mets didn't make the playoffs. They've impressed me all year.
All right, so let's move on. We've got our final question here on the Atlanta Braves Los Angeles Dodgers series. It's 2 to 1 now, so 2 to 1. The Braves are leading. Game 4 is later today. Who's going to win this series in how many games? And Larry, you've got vested interest emotionally and financially. You've already tipped your cap a little bit there. Give us the winner of this series. How many games?
Dodgers in 6 or 7. Yeah.
I'm going to go. Kershaw's going to come out, do outstanding tonight, tie the series up 2-2. It's going 7, but I'm going to go Braves in 7. I think they've got just the little bit more to drive to do it. Not that the Dodgers are going to slough it off, but I think the Braves have been fighters all year, and I think they're going to win it in 7.
I think the Dodgers came so close last year, and they added Mookie Betts that they're not going to be able to be held back. I'd say the Dodgers in 7.
Dodgers in 6, Dodgers in 7, Braves in 7. I have no opinion. This is the halftime part of our show. I'm Nolan Dalla, brought to you by Pointspreads.ca. Go make a bet at Spreads.ca, particularly if you live in Canada. A lot of bonuses right now. $25 free bet if you sign up now. And also we'll match 100% of your deposit up to $500. How great is that? So go to Spreads.ca. We're brought to you again by Pointspreads.ca. My guests here talking Major League Baseball, Scott Byron, Larry Greenfield, and Earl Burton. A great cast. We're going to talk now. Oh, yeah, we've got some questions. Thank you for those of you watching on Facebook Live. We've got several questions, but unfortunately the time is running out. But here's one interesting question that I would like to get to. It looks like Jamie is asking about the sorry, I've got to look at this. So the no fans in the stands or playing at neutral sites. The question is, what team, if any, does this lack of crowd or this unusual circumstances playing in a neutral site, does it help any of the 4 teams, or will it change the World Series in any way?
Well, I think Tampa Bay is used to not playing in front of
You laugh, but
there
he's
you go,
right.
Scott. He just punched you.
You laugh, but he's right.
I'm not sure we could do better than that answer. Can anybody want to raise Scott Byron for moving all in there?
That was great.
No. I've been to Tropicana Field. I've seen the 2,500 people that show up to the game.
By the way, Scott, I'm real curious. Earl, I'm real curious about something about Tampa and this kind of this ongoing joke. I think Scott Byron before the show, he asked me, "You mean you found a Tampa Bay fan?" And he was kind of joking about that. And I think I do know 2 or 3. But the question is it because of this indoor stadium and just it's kind of a lifeless, dome, AstroTurf, just not really conducive to baseball? Or is there something about the Tampa community that's just not baseball, warm to baseball. What's the explanation for that?
There are multiple reasons that the Rays have issues here in the Tampa Bay area. One, they built the stadium in St. Petersburg. Okay. Now, if you know anything about this area, to get to St. Petersburg, there's like 3 bridges to take to get there. And those are the only ways in and out. To go over there for a game, you have to plan. I mean, it's literally like a military operation. You've got to plan. Okay, we're going to, get over here and hit the Michael Causeway to get across the bay to get to St. Pete, and then we're going to have to fight on the freeways over there to get over to Trop. Over to the Trop, and then the Trop is literally in the downtown of the city of St. Pete, and then you've got to find the parking. And they've got a woeful parking issue there, even with the limited crowds that they have, and it's just a nightmare to get in and out. People from Tampa don't go over there, and Tampa is the larger of the Tampa-St. Pete cities. This is why they really, really like to build a baseball stadium on the side of the bay so they can get those from Tampa, Lakeland, Orlando, Sarasota, get the people from those areas rather than have it on basically what is a peninsula that you have to take a bridge to get to. That's the big problem that a lot of it has. The Trop is also just not conducive to baseball. It's a great football stadium. Don't get me wrong there. It's a great football stadium. But for baseball, especially with the catwalks and all the obstacles over the field, it just doesn't feel like a baseball stadium. Finally, it's just the factor that it doesn't seem like the ownership wants to put the money into the team. I mean, they have done some fantastic things as far as of trading off players, Evan Longoria, Chris Archer, a couple others, and getting good young talent in for these guys. And those guys that they trade away, all of a sudden kind of go off the edge of the map once they've been traded from Tampa Bay. I know Archer has only played in something like 20 games since he was traded to Pittsburgh, and Longoria is a shadow of his former self out in San Francisco. So there's multiple things that make it difficult for Tampa Bay's for the team to have a good solid fan base. Whether they'll get it corrected or not, and you also got to look down there and Miami at their team. They're actually worse than Tampa Bay. Maybe it's just a simple factor that Florida baseball works in the spring, not in the summer. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things they could think about a little bit, that it just doesn't seem to work out because there's a lot of options out there, and indoor baseball in Florida, it's not that impressive.
They've still built a pretty incredible team this year, though.
Well, that's just it. I mean, they have built a fantastic team out of the farm system. Like I said, they got Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow in the trade with Pittsburgh when they sent off Chris Archer. I mean, Glasnow, that's a stud that's going to be with the team, well, at least until he asks for too much money. And Austin Meadows, same thing. There's going to come a time when he's going to say, hey, I want my share, and they're going to say, well, we're going to have to see what we can get for you. It's what they do. It's what Tampa does, is that they have great scouting. They have very intelligent general managers, and they have they've been able to have some great managers in both Joe Madden and Kevin Cash that have been saying, okay, this is what I've got. How can I make it happen for the best? And they do it. They make it work somehow.
All right, well, that's a perfect segue into the AL Championship Series. The Tampa Bay Rays, the Oakland A's of the East, as we say, underachieving or overachieving relative to their market size and payroll. But now the Rays are up 3-1 in this series, and Houston, of course, won Game 4 last night. The series looked like it was going to be just dominated by the Rays. It has been largely, again, up 3-1. Houston winning last night. So it's interesting, though, that this series is very different than the National League Series in the sense that I think outside of Houston, every baseball fan in America is rooting for the Rays because of the Houston Astros scandal, of course, from a few years ago, and the cheating thing and all that. And then the Rays are just this great underdog story as well. So let's talk about that series. I guess I'll just lay it out, Scott Byron first. Is the series over? I mean, Houston had a losing regular season record, but they somehow made it through 2 series. But now they're down 3-1. Does Houston have any chance to come back here, Scott?
I don't think so. It's really that simple. They're playing too well, Tampa, and I mean, Houston is not a bad team. They're certainly on a down year, but Tampa Bay is they just have too much to put out there, and players who you wouldn't expect to have stepped forward, and they show no signs of letting up. I mean, this guy Arozarena, I mean, he's mind blowing. This guy. I mean, and if he keeps sitting, forget it. It's over. I'd be surprised if it goes past tonight.
Larry?
Well, tonight, Tampa Bay is back, I think, first pitcher. Or it'd be a bullpen game at 3-1. But Snell and the staff of the Rays are too much for the Astros. Had been hitting in the playoffs at Dodger Stadium, in fact. The Asterisks, we hate them, but they took advantage of Dodger Stadium to win their first 2 series. So I was going to say that games might start going over, by the way, Nolan, as bullpens have to pitch 7 games in a row in a 7-game series. But now the Rays get their fresh best starters to go against the Astros. So I suspect the Rays will close out the series.
You stole my best bet.
Yeah, definitely.
There's going to be a lot of over.
Oh,
All right, so just a minute, gentlemen, hold that thought on the betting angle, because we're going to get as we close the show, we're going to do a whole segment on that, and you can't be redundant on this point because, you know, I want to be told 3 times if there's a really good bet out there. So don't think that, hey, he already said that. Go ahead and pound it into us if you really believe that, because that's what we're here for. Is hopefully listeners can make some money. So Earl, the Tampa Bay Rays built on just the fundamentals of baseball, solid pitching and great defense, not really any superstars like you see on some of the other rosters. This is a baseball purist dream team, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. No doubt at all. I mean, they do the right things. They have strong pitching, Snell and Glasnow. They got a couple of nice pieces that, you know, in Kiermaier, he's a great defensive player. He used to have a little pop to his bat, but that's kind of gone away as the years have gone by. And some injuries have caught up with him. They just do everything correct. I mean, if there's a player to move along, they hit behind him and move him along. If they, you know, are looking to play, you know, the shift at this particular point, then they find just the right places to be. I mean, they follow Kevin Cash's instructions to the T, and it shows in how well they play. They play together as a team. And that is, at this point of the season, critical to your success. I will have to agree with Larry and Scott both. I don't see it going beyond tonight. I see Tampa Bay finishing it off, especially with Ian Snell on the mound. I think that he shuts down the Astros. And I think that they put together the right pieces, the right parts. And the whole is a fourth win and a pennant from the American League and a trip to the World Series.
All right. I guess it sounds like everyone's going to be in agreement on this. My next question was going to be, what do the Houston Astros need to do to come back and win 3 more games? They won last night, but I don't think they have, 4 guys named Greinke to start the next 4, 3 or 4 games. So it doesn't sound like Houston just can match them on the mound, if anywhere else in the lineup. Anybody want to take a wild guess as to what the Astros could possibly do to come back and shock everyone and win this series?
Could they let Springer hit every position in the batting order?
Yeah, what's been really surprising to me, they really need to wake up Correa and Altuve. They have basically, been non-existent in the postseason altogether. I don't know quite what's gone on there. I mean, maybe they haven't found a trash can lid or something, but it's something that. They maybe got to get their mojo back. I mean, that's the heart of the team. I mean, you talk about Springer hitting every slot. Well, it used to be Altuve, and it also Correa was his wingman. So those two, not exactly having their best outings as far as the postseason go is something that might be if they got started, then it might change, but. I don't see them coming back to win. If this is the Rays' series to lose, period.
All right, so that I think pretty much we've got this in the bag for the Rays winning in the American League Championship Series. Let's now just talk gambling, and we're not going to get into your final World Series predictions, if you can keep that separate, because that'll be our final question coming up in a moment. But let's talk about you've got to pay your rent in this spot, by the way. You need to pay your rent in a week or 2 weeks, whenever you want to say. And you've got to get some money down on something, totals, player propositions, any particular game. You've got to get your best bet down. Give us your best bet. Scott, I'm going to let you take this one because you got into it a little earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think with no days off and with the way it's been going hitting wise, I think it's more likely that overs are going to come in more than anything else. I don't, it's not going to be every game, but I think, maybe 60% of the games are going to go over at this point. They may adjust depending on how it goes. I mean, if there's a lot more games like last night's Dodgers game, they'll adjust the totals a bit. But I think overs are probably the best bet at this point.
Excuse me, I have to follow up on
I
something.
agree.
When you have say they score 11 runs in the top of the first, that does change the pitching, or does it? There's no reason that anyone's going to the Braves, for example, or the Dodgers, for that matter, are going to waste any pitching the rest of this game. So they're not going to use again any of the good starters or relievers, right? In a game like that, how does a blowout affect maybe the rotations and with regard to the totals? Any comment on that?
Yeah, it didn't. As you said, Nolan, both teams were able to finesse the rest of yesterday's game. The over/under on that game was 9.5. By the way, the Dodgers scored 11 in the first, top of the first, and they won 15-3. But not a lot of damage was done to the bullpens because they let their 14th and 15th pitchers handle and chew up some innings. So I don't think that's the issue, but I do agree with Scott. Just like we know that the third time around in a game, batting averages go up. So now with 7 games in a row, you're going to get some familiarity by the hitters in games 5, 6, and 7 with the relievers. And starters aren't going more than 5 or 6 because of the structure of baseball now, and managers and agents and pitchers don't want to throw 120 pitches in a game. And they've got a World Series to look forward to. So you're getting into bullpens, and you'll have seen those pitchers in the bullpens. So I think the batters have the edge in the later games in a series where there's no days off. So I'm liking the overs also.
By the way, before I get to Earl, I want to press both of you on this, meaning Scott and Larry. Are you just saying bet the over in every single remaining playoff or World Series game across? Would you advise that? I mean, everything else being equal, obviously, if you see 9.5, you've got to be careful. I don't think you'll see a 10, but who knows? Is that what you're saying? Just bet them all over?
Yes, I could imagine that if the 2 number 1s are going at it, Buehler and maybe the number 1 for Atlanta, Max Fried, right? That game could be very competitive and low scoring through 5 or 6. But I still think the teams are going to get to the bullpens and have some intense late inning scoring and great games. So yeah, I mean you might miss one, but as a blanket rule, if you bet all the overs from now on in a series where it might go 6 or 7, I think you'll probably win your share.
Yeah, I think assuming that the bookies don't overcompensate.
Yeah.
Then I think that's a good plan. What you said, betting a lot of overs.
Well, also
You just have to keep an eye on the line.
Yeah, you could do in-game
Sorry, go
betting
ahead.
as well. And let's say you have a 1-1 game in the 5th inning, and the total maybe I'm going to guess on this total is all of a sudden 4.5. You know what I mean? In other words, they'll say 2.5 or 3 more runs, and of course you're suggesting that the bullpens are going to crumble. And by the way, I can't believe I'm going to ask this question, but it's going to show my naivete. In the World Series, they start with the runner on second next innings. Is that rule carry over to the World Series? The thing that we had,
No.
It does not carry over.
They're done. They're done for the
Okay.
whole playoffs. They haven't been using that
Okay.
runner starts on second, 10th.
Because that would
That
be
was
back to
regular
the
season only. Yeah,
They have been using the DH, however, which is an added bat
right.
throughout the playoffs,
Yeah.
especially for National League teams, which are not used to it. So that's a
And I
factor.
think that's some of the reason, Larry, that we've been seeing the increase in run production is that you have that DH in there instead of the pitcher hitting, in the National League parks and as it would be normally. With the DH going, that gives you another couple runs a game overall. So yeah, I think that might be having an effect as well with the DH. Being utilized throughout the entirety of the playoffs versus just using it in the American League.
Now, the World Series, Nolan, if I'm not mistaken, will also be played at the Arlington
Yes.
Yeah.
Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
That is a big ballpark. And so the Rays may be competitive if they make the World Series. I know the Dodgers hit 5 homers in 2 1/3 innings or something crazy last night, but it isn't quite Dodger Stadium, where during day games at Dodger Stadium, the ball flies out of there now. So it is a bit of a pitcher's park. I don't know if you guys agree.
Is that really true? I know they reconfigured the stadium in Arlington.
Yeah.
The Rangers, and of course the ballpark was always known as a hitter's park. Of course, the Rangers were always a hitter's team. Bad pitching and a high-scoring team. Is that really true? I know they reconfigured the roof and the shadows are different and so forth. But are the dimensions on fences were they moved out in Arlington? I didn't know that.
It's a big park. Now, that could play to the advantage of singles and doubles being such a big park. So the fences are out there, and the Dodgers will adjust. But they do swing away, the Dodgers. Everybody's going for that homer with the launch angle. And sometimes that's why the Dodgers will go 4 or 5 innings and just get whiffed because everybody's trying to be a hero. So if they're focused and they're willing to move the next guy along, I suspect the Dodgers will be fine in that park.
All right, Earl, I know you're chomping at the bit there like a stallion ready to break out of its stall with your best bet or some of your best bets on gambling. You can follow up to what we were talking about, but the last word is yours on this segment.
I see myself. I don't think we're going to see. I think it's just going to be, an offensive festival. So I would have to agree with both Larry and Scott. The balls are going to be flying. The pitchers. I think personally myself that you're going to see, a lot of the starter by committee type things where you have a guy who goes 2-3 innings and then somebody else comes and gets this one guy for situation, and then somebody else comes in for an inning, and then guy comes in couple it. I think that you're going to see that more often, just so they can try to keep these batters off balance. It may work, it may not, but I personally don't think it will. I think that the batters, because of the way the season has gone, it's been a short year. They usually have the advantage, over a short, and they've have not stretched these pitchers out any great length. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of fireworks for the remainder of these playoffs and for the World Series.
All right, excellent. Well, gentlemen, terrific information. I learned a lot on the show. We're going to do our final segment here. We're going to make our predictions on the 2020 World Series. I'd like you to basically break it down by saying who's going to get there, who's going to win, who's going to be the winner in the World Series. Also forecast the number of games, for example, Rays in 6 or whatever. And give us an MVP pick if you have to pick somebody to be the World Series MVP. So again, who's going to get there, who's going to win, how many games, and your MVP pick. Who wants to go first? Who's under the gun?
I'll be happy. Go ahead, Scott.
Somebody earlier mentioned, the head versus the heart on these things. I mean, my heart is with the Tampa Bay Rays, but my head tells me that the Dodgers are too strong to take down. I think that those are the two teams. I think the Dodgers will probably win in 6 games. I don't know who would be an MVP, but maybe Mookie Betts. I don't know. But my heart is with Tampa Bay, plus my money. I did bet a futures on Tampa Bay in midseason when they were plus 2,500.
Wow.
So I'm going to be rooting hard for them.
But has to be expected.
Oh, by the way, excuse me, before I go on, any temptation to hedge your bet since you're free rolling that 25 to 1 shot?
I will consider it once we know which teams are involved. But it's not a huge bet, so I'm not sweating it that hard.
Yeah, you're not averse to risk. I know that. Anyone who knows Scott Byron knows that's the case. All right, Earl.
All in.
Well, I am going to. Okay, call me Homer if you want, but I am going to go Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to win tonight. I'm going to fire off. So that way, give them a couple of days to kind of sit back and wait and see what comes out of the Atlanta-LA series. I think that Tampa's going to go from the American League. National League, I'm going to go, like I said, 7 games, Braves. I think they are going to come out of it in the end. You got Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. Atlanta has the better offense overall. Tampa has the better pitching and defense. I think it's going to be Tampa, 7 games. Your MVP is going to be Tyler Glasnow, who pitched last night for them. He's going to come in, pitch games 3 and 7, and he may even get a relief appearance in there some way. Tyler Glasnow as the MVP.
Wow. Let me guess homerism. If you want to talk about homerism, now it's your turn, Larry Greenfield.
I say D. D-O-D-G. D-O-D-G-E-R-S-T. It's a great Dodger team. That doesn't mean they'll win it all, but I'm going to bet that they will at this point. Even though they're down 2-1, I think they win tonight with Kershaw. If they don't win with Kershaw, then obviously they're not going to win the series. The Braves will close it out, I suspect. And so let's go with the Dodgers in 6 or 7 against the Braves. And then the Dodgers to beat the Rays in 6 or 7. It'll still be a good series, I hope. And yeah, I love the idea that Scott can hedge at this point, even if it's on an individual game, right? Because then he can still win his big bet and then hedge on an individual bet. So that's the way I play it too. I try to get lucky. I got the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl on a big bet, and now I know they're going to make the playoffs, so I'll do that in the NFL. And my MVP is either Corey Seager, who's on fire, or Mookie Betts. They're at the top of the lineup. They get the most at-bats, and they're playing great.
I don't think we've seen how Mookie Betts, as great as he can be yet. And if he turns it on, it's kind of over.
He's very special. Very.
All right. Well, Larry Greenfield, you're somewhat of a, I don't want to call you a luck magnet because it's all skill. I know you're a professional investor, but I've never met anybody that hit more total middles than you did. You had the Kansas City Chiefs at 54 a couple of weeks ago. You had above 52.5 and under 54.5, and you hit that at 54. I was like standing there watching the TV. My jaw was on the floor. So I'm going to listen to your bets. Scott, 25-1 speaks for itself. You're free rolling that, baby. And your heart's there in Tampa Bay, cheering for your Rays, Earl Burton. What a great panel. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this segment. We had just a great time. First time we've done a baseball show. One thing I learned, we got to do more baseball. So let's say prior to next season, gentlemen, I'd like you to come back and we're going to forecast how about the 2021 Major League Baseball season. We got our guest list right here. What do you say, gentlemen? Were you all in on that?
Awesome. All in.
All right, you're all in. Thanks a lot. This is Nolan Dalla for Slapshot. We're usually a weekly show, but we do a lot of stuff on football every week, baseball. We've done hockey and even basketball. So come back next time, and we'll have some other guests. Maybe not as good as this one because this was a great lineup. So, but we always have a lot of fun here on Slapshot. Brought to you by Pointspreads.ca. And again, check out spreads.ca, especially if you live in Canada, and get down a bet. So we'll see you next time. I'm Nolan Dalla, and may all your bets be winners.